The teenager walked through the hospital corridors wearing a white coat, carrying a clipboard, and speaking with enough confidence that nobody questioned him. Nurses nodded as he passed. Patients trusted his instructions, doctors assumed he belonged there, and for weeks one of the busiest hospitals in the country failed to realize that the young doctor moving through its wards was not a doctor at all. He was still a teenager, and somehow he had fooled almost everyone. The story sounds almost impossible today. Modern hospitals operate through strict identification systems, digital records, security clearances, background checks, and years of medical training. The idea that a teenager could simply walk into a hospital and convince people he was qualified to practice medicine feels absurd. But in the late 20th century, systems were different. Hospitals were chaotic, understaffed, hierarchical environments built heavily on trust, appearance, and confidence. If someone looked professional, spoke the language of authority, and acted like they belonged, people often stopped asking questions surprisingly quickly. And that loophole became the foundation of one of the strangest deception stories ever recorded. The boy at the center of the story came from an unstable background marked by personal struggles, fractured identity, and an overwhelming desire to become someone important. Accounts of his early life describe a teenager fascinated by status, intelligence, and professional authority. Medicine represented all of those things at once. Doctors were respected, trusted, powerful, and inside hospitals, they moved through life and death situations with unquestioned authority. For someone desperate to reinvent himself, the white coat became more than clothing. It became an entirely new identity. The deception reportedly began with small experiments, observing how medical staff spoke, memorizing terminology, learning routines, watching how doctors carried themselves during conversations. The teenager realized something unsettling very quickly. Most people do not verify confidence, they react to it. If he spoke calmly enough, acted busy enough, and avoided hesitation, people filled the gaps themselves. Human psychology did the rest. Nurses assumed he was a young intern. Interns assumed he was part of another department. Patients saw the white coat and stopped questioning anything entirely. And once the illusion started working, it became addictive. He began spending longer periods inside hospital environments, blending into medical teams and observing procedures from close range. He carried clipboards because clipboards signaled legitimacy. He used technical language because jargon creates authority. He learned when to nod silently and when to speak decisively. The most dangerous part was not intelligence, it was social engineering. He understood something that security experts now recognize clearly. Institutions often trust appearances more than verification, especially inside high-pressure systems where everyone assumes someone else already checked credentials. Hospitals were particularly vulnerable to this. Medical environments move constantly, staff rotate through shifts. Emergency situations create chaos. Young trainees frequently appear inexperienced anyway. A nervous-looking teenager in a white coat did not automatically seem suspicious because hospitals already contained exhausted interns, students, and junior staff trying desperately to look competent. And that environment allowed the deception to grow far beyond what anyone imagined possible. According to reports surrounding the case, the fake doctor began interacting directly with patients and staff while maintaining the illusion for an alarming amount of time. In some versions of the story, he even observed surgeries and participated in medical discussions. Every successful interaction strengthened his confidence further, because once people accept an identity, they often reinterpret evidence to support it. If he looked too young, people assumed he was gifted. If he appeared uncertain, they assumed he was new. If he stayed quiet, they assumed he was focused. Human beings naturally search for explanations that preserve the reality they already believe. And inside the hospital, almost nobody wanted to believe something this bizarre could be happening. That psychological resistance protected him. The longer the deception lasted, the harder it became for staff to imagine they had all been fooled simultaneously. Admitting the truth would mean admitting the system itself had failed. So warning signs were ignored, questions went unasked, and the teenager kept walking the corridors as if he belonged there. Stories like this often become distorted over time, and details vary depending on sources. Some accounts exaggerate certain events, while others downplay them. But what made the case infamous was not only the deception itself, it was what the deception revealed about institutional trust. Because hospitals are built on layers of assumed credibility. Patients trust doctors because hospitals certify them. Nurses trust identification systems. Administrators trust departments. Departments trust hiring processes. Most people inside large systems operate under the assumption that verification already happened somewhere else. And when everyone assumes someone else checked, loopholes appear. The teenager exploited those gaps masterfully. He reportedly copied mannerisms from real doctors, almost like an actor studying a role. The way physicians walked quickly through hallways, the detached calm during stressful situations, the shorthand language used between staff members. Even exhaustion became part of the disguise. Overworked hospitals normalized strange behavior because everyone already looked tired, distracted, and overwhelmed. At times, the deception bordered on surreal. Experienced professionals spoke with him casually. Staff accepted his presence during serious medical moments. Patients followed his instructions. In another environment, a teenager pretending to be a doctor would seem instantly ridiculous. But inside the hospital ecosystem, the appearance of authority became strangely powerful. Eventually, however, cracks began appearing. Suspicion grows slowly in environments built on routine. Small inconsistencies started standing out. Certain staff members questioned his credentials. Others noticed gaps in his knowledge that should not exist for someone claiming medical training. The illusion depended entirely on movement and confidence. The longer he stayed in one place, the harder it became to avoid deeper scrutiny, and once scrutiny finally arrived, the entire performance began collapsing rapidly. Investigations exposed the truth. The doctor was not licensed, not trained, and not even old enough to practice medicine legally. Shock spread throughout the institution. Administrators faced humiliation. Staff members struggled to understand how someone so young had penetrated such a serious environment so easily. The public reaction was immediate fascination mixed with fear, because beneath the bizarre story sat a deeply uncomfortable realization. If a teenager could infiltrate a hospital using confidence alone, what did that say about the systems people trusted with their lives? Media coverage exploded because the story felt almost cinematic. A fake doctor moving undetected through hospital corridors sounded like fiction. Comparisons emerged to famous imposters and con artists throughout history, people who manipulated trust not through advanced technology, but through performance. And performance is often more powerful than people realize. Psychologists studying deception frequently note that humans rely heavily on social signals to determine credibility. Uniforms, titles, body language, jargon, and confidence trigger automatic assumptions. Most daily interactions depend on those shortcuts because constantly verifying every person and every claim would make society function unbearably slowly. Normally, those assumptions work, but occasionally someone learns how to weaponize them. The fake doctor story became more than a strange headline because it exposed vulnerabilities hidden inside modern institutions. After cases like this, hospitals increased identification requirements, tightened security systems, and strengthened credential verification processes. In many ways, stories about imposters force institutions to evolve. But they also reveal something timeless about human nature. People desperately want certainty. When someone appears confident and authoritative, the brain relaxes. Questioning authority requires energy, confrontation, and risk. Most individuals avoid it unless something feels dramatically wrong. The teenager understood that instinctively. He realized that looking like he belonged mattered more than almost anything else. And for a while it worked. The most disturbing part of the story is not that one teenager fooled a hospital. It is how ordinary the deception looked while it was happening. No elaborate hacking, no master criminal operation, just clothing, confidence, observation, and human assumptions operating exactly as they usually do, which raises an unsettling possibility. How many systems around us function primarily because people believe they function? In the end, the fake doctor did not expose weakness in medicine itself. He exposed weakness in perception. The hospital had equipment, experts, procedures, and trained professionals. But underneath all of it remained something surprisingly fragile: trust. And for a brief moment, a teenager wearing a white coat learned how powerful that trust could become when nobody stopped to question it.